Are you looking to get into retro computing, or do you want to expand your collection? Well, I think the Apple II series of devices is the best for beginners, and they're really great machines to have around. I want to focus on the 2E on this video, but that doesn't draw away from the 2C or the GS. If you can get any one of these machines, you're going to be happy. The GS is personally my favorite. But for a beginner, somebody who doesn't want to do a lot of troubleshooting or just finagling around with difficult setups, the 2E is perfect. You can pick one of these up today. As long as you have a male-to-male stereo headphone jack and the internet, you could start playing programs. And I'm going to show you how. One of the best reasons to get an Apple IIe is it's just going to work. Every single Apple II I've come across, at least in the E family, turns on. This one, everything you see here was in a guy's shed on Facebook Marketplace, covered in grass and had mice living in it and all kinds of stuff. Took it home, blew it off, and it turned on. Now, I couldn't say the same thing about the TRS-80, another member of the 1977 Trinity of Computing, that was also in that shed. Because even though it had the same grass and dirt and probably mice family living in it, that machine didn't turn on. It's just not as well thought out as the Apple IIe. It's an amazing, amazing machine. It's well thought out and incredibly robust. I was talking to Joe of Joe's Computer Museums about Apple IIs and our love for them. And both of us had a similar experience where it's very hard to break an Apple IIe. And what I mean with that is I have plugged peripherals, cards into an Apple II. They might have been, released in its heyday, something that I prototyped or built with, and the card would die. Smoke would be let out, maybe little flames or whatnot. And you would think any other computer, you would have probably fried the entire machine. Not the Apple IIe. Turn it off, pull that card out, and it'll turn on again. This thing is an absolute tank and a testament to its engineering. Under the hood, you'll see 7 expansion slots, which can bring new capabilities to your machine, a 6502 or 65C02 processor, 64 kilobytes of RAM, which could be upgradable to 1 megabyte with an additional RAM card. On the back of your Apple II, you'll see various punch-outs for expansion ports, access, anything else you might need for those expansion cards. But I really want to point out your cassette in and out, because with your cassette input, that's where you can really have fun with the internet. Alright, so you have your Apple II, it starts up, no magic smoke, great, but you don't have any software. Now, you may have some floppy disks laying around, and that's great. But if you don't, you could still play games. I'm going to show you the Apple II game server as well as the Apple II disk server. All you need is a computer with audio out or a cell phone, and you can hook that directly to your Apple II through a male-to-male audio cable, and then you can start downloading these programs. Let me show you how. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to turn on your Apple II. You'll likely hear the disk drive spin up and continually spin. So the first thing you're going to do is hit Control Reset. Now we're in Command Prompt. So we're going to show the Apple game server first, because what's great about this is you don't need a disk. The disk server, we're actually writing to the disk. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some games over here, and you can see there's a lot. And you can just click on any one of these and it'll play it over audio into your Apple II, and it puts it right into RAM. So let's just look at Pitfall 2. So we'll click on it. Now we have some options here. The very first thing you want to do is look at your screen, and do you have a bracket or an asterisk? That's going to tell you what version you're going to have to play. So we have Hi-Fi bracket, Hi-Fi asterisk. I have had the best luck with lo-fi. Now, your traction will vary, right? Depending on your audio output, your cables, everything else. So you might want to play around with this. But if you look at the bottom of the screen, pretty straightforward. So I have the bracket, so I'm going to type in load, and as soon as I hit return on the Apple II, I'm going to hit play on here. Now it is lo-fi, so it's going to take 1 minute 53 seconds to load. But like I said, I've had the best luck at this, so let's go. And you see once the computer reads the initial data, it'll tell you what it's loading and the estimated time for it, just like it would if you were loading off of a cassette. And look, there we go, Pitfall 2, The Lost Caverns. So it's ready to go. In under 2 minutes, I have the game fully loaded into RAM, and we can go ahead and start playing it. Now, I don't know the controls of this one, so, and you know, maybe it needs a joystick. I don't know. But you can go through and load any of these games right into RAM. You'll be able to play it, no discs required. Now, what if you had some discs and you wanted to actually write to them? Well, that's okay. We're going to flip over to the Apple II disk server, and we'll restart the Apple II, and I'll show you what we have to do. All right, so now we're on the Apple disk server. I've already restarted my Apple II, and I'm into the prompt mode. So let's look at this. Very similar setup to the Apple II game server, but these are programs that are too large to be loaded and executed directly from RAM. They need to be on a disk. Now, the nice thing about this is it puts the essential programs, or what I would argue are definitely the essential programs, right up top. ADT Pro, DOS, ProDOS, RAM testers. These are things that you're going to want to use so you can get more out of your machine, make sure RAM's functional, especially ADT Pro. I might do a video about that down the road. After that, we get into new releases, Alien Downpour, really great game on there, CP/M stuff, virtual Apple archives. There's a lot. Like, there is a lot. A couple years ago, I just sat down one day and I just started making a whole bunch of discs on here. So let's pick Pac-Man. So we'll open this up. Like I said, very similar before, except we now can format or not format our discs. I always like to format it. I think that's just a good habit to get into. So let's type in load. And we are going to format, and let's cross our fingers. All right, so now we see that it is loading Instadisk. So instead of loading the program, we are going to go into Instadisk where we can format and write. So you see now it's formatting the disk. We see all of our tracks and sectors. And it's just going to go to work. Now we do have limitations though. We can't load everything at once. So it has to format it, load the information into RAM, write it, load it, write it. So you will see it go back and forth, writing the data, loading the data, inflating the data, and then putting it on to disk. I really like the visual interpretation of this. It kind of makes a slower, mind-numbing process a little bit more fun. All right, so we're done. We're going to press return, and it's going to reboot the machine, and hopefully we'll load into Pac-Man. Look at that. Now I have a brand new functional Pac-Man disc. And, you know, at the end of the day, that took what? Less than 2 or 3 minutes. And here we are loading into it. And this is the great thing about it, because there are many other options to get programs onto your Apple II computer, but this was free. As long as you have some floppy disks, you could start writing programs and using those programs. And even if you don't have disks, you can use the Apple II game server and start playing immediately. So the Apple Disk Server and the Apple Game Server are not the only options for the Apple II. I really like and appreciate them because they are free. They're pretty much instant to set up. You just need a cable for it. And even if you don't have any disk drives or you don't have floppy disks, you can use those, at least on the game server side of the house. You can immediately use your machine and enjoy it. but that's not the only options for the Apple II series. If you have a 2E or a 2GS, there's a lot of internal options like this microdrive turbo. Various versions of this from different manufacturers, either vintage or modern. This has lived in my Apple II GS for 4 or 5 years, a while, and I absolutely, actually even longer than that, but I absolutely love it. This has given me a lot of flexibility. I have different partitions in here, can load right into GSOS and be ready to go. So really good for a 2E or GS, more on the pricey side. If you come down a little bit and want even more flexibility, in my opinion, you can go with a floppy EMU. Now, this is a disk emulator. It works with the 2E, the 2GS, the 2C, and Macintosh. So, and the Lisa as well. So really, if you have any vintage Apple product, this is almost a must-have. So you can load all of your disk images onto an SD card, navigate through your on-screen display, and load your programs from there. My 2GS is the workhorse. Like I say, it's my favorite. I have the microdrive turbo in there and the floppy EMU, and I can get everything I need as well as with actual media. I think all of this really just proves that the Apple II line of computers, including the 2C, they were really ahead of their time, and the architecture is incredibly flexible and incredibly forgiving. And you really see that with how much modern support there is with items like this, whether it's on the hardware or the software side. The Apple II community is amazing. There's a lot of great smart people who are doing wonderful things to these old machines, and there really isn't anything that an Apple II series computer can't do. And I mean that. A few years ago, it was demonstrated that an Apple II could do Bitcoin mining. It's incredibly slow, and the cost to reward ratio is just, it isn't there. But the machine was successfully able to do it. The more you look through Apple II forums, you will see 2Es, 2GSs, and even 2Cs doing things that they have no business doing in the modern day. But they're amazing machines. And I think at the end of this video, and the more you learn about the Apple II line of computers, you'll agree with me that Apple II Forever isn't just an advertising slogan.